All right, we're good to go.
Awesome, awesome. So I'm super grateful and appreciative. Katie, thank you so much for inviting me to do this with you guys and get to spend that time. So the 6 personal perspectives is what Katie asked me to share with y'all. And it's kind of one of my favorite classes to teach. And normally, I'm in the room and I'm talking, and so you're just going to have to bear with me on Zoom. It may not be as dramatic as it is when we're in person. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with y'all, so you won't see as much of my face and my office and all the people walking around in here. I'm going to probably just keep the PowerPoint up because that way we can all have that information. And if you want to take notes, you should be able to do that as well. And all of this information, the actual material, is available on KW Connect, Keller Williams University. So if there's something that you see that you go, gosh, I really want to print that out, or I would like to make a copy of that, I know that Katie and the team there can easily download that. If you don't know where to go to get it, we know how to get it. We can get it to you. I'm sure, Katie, I'm not overstepping to say that at all. Okay, so let me get my screen up for you guys, and we will we'll get started. So hang on just a second, because I didn't do what I wanted to do to get started. All righty. So basically, let me get you guys back to the beginning here. So 6 personal perspectives, really and truly, and I have to tell y'all, I don't know, I'm friends with some of the agents in the office on Facebook. Some of you I'm not. We did, for those of you that I'm friends with, you may have seen our market center here in Birmingham. We did a series of videos. We called it the COVID-19 Chronicles, and we did 19 videos with a bonus round of me after interviewing 19 agents. And we had some agents that just, I mean, unbelievable success during the COVID time. So what we wanted to do was kind of capture what they had done, what had worked, how did they thrive, and just share that. And so in the final video series, the final installment episode, I should say, where my MCA John interviewed me, one of the things that I shared was that throughout those 19 interviews, there were really 3 themes, 3 things that consistently showed up in each of those agents' business. And one of them was leadership. They really understood that in that time period, I think for some of them at varying levels of understanding, they realized that they are a leader. Like when people look to you and ask you questions, you're a leader, whether you want to be or not. And so leadership was a huge part. The second part was habits. They had the right habits. And the third, and these are not in any particular order, was mindset. And they all had shared in those interviews that at some point, everybody had a moment of fear. And I think if we all go back to the middle of March, we can remember that there was a point in time where you went, holy crap, what is going to happen here? And then you had to do a really fast adjustment of your mindset. And one of the things that I love the most about Keller Williams, and I shared this in the video, is that every single class that we teach, every single one, starts off with mindset. And I think sometimes that gets old, and sometimes we're like, God, I've heard this before. Yeah. Can we get to get through that first chapter so we can get into the meat of it? But man, I was really convicted through this last 90 days that Gary's right to just keep just drilling down on mindset, because the need for that was very apparent this year. And then you follow that with, we moved right from COVID, which I don't even know if we're still in there anymore or not. I'm not completely clear, into some serious, significant, weighty discussions and conversations and dialogue about social justice and equality. And that is massive. That's so important that we tackle that in the right mindset, coming from curiosity to hear each other and be willing to listen and hear a different perspective maybe than you've heard before. And still, we got to sell real estate. So like mindset is, I think 2020, we all had like 2020 vision. It was like the big catchy phrase. I don't hear anybody saying that anymore, first of all. But secondly, 2020 vision this year for me has been, I have to have clarity like between the 6 inches between my ears. And so when Katie had asked me to teach 6 personal perspectives, gosh, this was like February, we talked about doing it. I mean, this was before like everything hit. So last night when I was thinking about teaching and going through this with you, I thought, and I'm sorry, I'm not diving into the material, but I think we have to lay this foundation. Now more than ever, this is critical. To have the right mental foundation about your business. Holy cow, if you didn't think you needed it before, I hope you do now. So with that being said, I'm going to dive right into 6 personal perspectives and what they are, and you just see the screen, foundational perspectives to propel you to the highest level of achievement. Highest level of achievement, that's different for everybody. In the month of May, I had a single agent, make $98,000 in gross commission in the month of May. And he will tell you his entire reason for the success he's had this year through all of this has been he had the right foundation and the right mindset. So let's kind of dive into that. Like so really, like, I mean, I don't know, Katie, you may be on mute. How many members of the board are there in Montgomery? How many agents do y'all have?
There's about 1,500, but a couple hundred of those are actually from a neighboring county. So
yeah, I knew you had that little overlap. So let's say 1,500 agents. So 1,500 agents, my guess is, and I've never pulled the data, but my guess is that you could probably say 500 of those agents do the majority of the business out of 1,500.
Easily.
And maybe less, maybe even more like 300. So what separates it, right? Because it's equal opportunity, unequal reward. So what differentiates those people who achieve at the highest level and those others that don't accomplish much? I was having a conversation with Jake Loers. Jake Loers is the regional director in Minnesota. And we were talking, and I said, when I sit across I've been doing this job for like, I don't know, feels like 47 years. And I sit across the table from a new agent, and all of you on this call were new agents at some point in time. I was a new agent at some point in time. Every single person sits in that chair and says, yeah, man, I want to build a great business. I want to build a huge bit. Nobody sits there and says, what I really want to do is work my butt off, study for this test, pass it, pay all my fees, and drop out in 6 months. Nobody says that. But then that's how people show up. And so you go, well, why did this one make it and this one not? And again, this is the playing field, right? The field is in between your 2 ears. So let's look at the 6 personal perspectives. Covers basically 3 different areas: your mindset, your attitude, and your approach to life. And, immediately, I'm sure there's plenty of you that can go, attitude, I know what you mean. Like, because we've all had like the negative Nancy friend, right? The one that comes and you're like, oh my God, okay, you stretch out. Let me get ready to talk to her, because she's going to come in and the sky is falling and the world is ending and everything's bad and everybody's out to get, and it's like you want to take a shower after you talk to them. It's just the negativity is the real thing. approach to life. Like, what do people bring to their approach to how they view life? And then what's going on in their head? My agents laugh at me all the time, because when any of them come to me with a problem, I say the same thing every single time. All right, 5-minute funeral, 5-minute celebration. You get to cry for 5 minutes and that's it. Like, we're not crying anymore. Pick up your skirt, let's move on. And when we celebrate, we can celebrate and then what's next? Because that mindset piece, if you stay in a negative space, it's going to be bad. I'm not saying anything you don't know. I'm just reminding us of what we have to be aware of. So basically, we've got 6 personal perspectives, and I'm just going to walk through them. Commit to self-mastery, commit to the 80-20 principle, move from E to P, make being learning-based the foundation of your action plan, removing your limiting beliefs, and being accountable. And, I think I've taught this, read this, gone through it. Like, I don't even know how many times. But I have to be honest with you, when I was looking at it again last night, having come through and still being in the last 90 days of challenges, I felt like I was looking at it with, a fresh set of eyes, like you learn things and then you learn them. Like, every time you learn something, you learn at a different level. And I really feel like I'm in that space. And I see some heads nodding and some very good friends on this call. And that makes I'm happy to know that I'm not the only one. It's going, man, I got to dig deep and grow through this time period. So, no, go for it, Keisha.
So, as I look at this list and just, I know step 1, 2, 3, and 4, but I actually had to go back and make number 4 my number 1 when these last 90 days, going back to being learning based all over again. Mm-hmm. Although we're always learning and we're always growing and always learning new things, I felt like I had to go back and take that number 4, place it back at the top and say, okay, Taisha, what are you committing yourself to learning while we're in this? And what's your action plan? What's the action plan behind that? Because now that I had to make that my foundation all over again, because now it's going to be doing things differently. Mm-hmm. And to keep myself from getting frustrated, I had to understand that I have to create a new foundation for how I was going to do things.
Well, and I'm going to jump ahead. I completely agree, Taisha. That's, and it's so good to see your face. I love you. But the thing about number 4, and we'll get to it again, but what you just said, like, I think a lot of times we stop at learning based, like, be learning based, but that's not the whole sentence. Taisha, what's the rest of it say?
It says, being learning based, the foundation, being learning based the foundation of your action plan.
There's an action, right?
That's right. Like, action has to go with it.
I have said this as a team leader for 100 years. I don't want professional class takers.
Yeah.
That doesn't do you any good, and it doesn't do me any good.
That's right.
I don't want somebody that just sits in a classroom. Now, what I want is someone that sits in a classroom and then goes and executes a professional business because of what they learned and they took action on it. So, but I get ahead of myself. So, kind of the quick phrases: committing to self-mastery. I'm going to nail this. I'm going to master this. And back to what Taisha just said, you were saying that about 4. Like, you were actually putting the 2 of them together.
That's
I'm
right.
going to nail and master being learning based.
Absolutely.
Commit to the 80-20 principle. I'm going to focus on my big rocks. The crazy thing about this, and I don't know what y'all's experiences were through COVID, but to me, step 2, commit to the 80-20 principle. We got a little helping hand in that, because the world took away the 80.
Yes.
Like, it just took it away. All the stuff. Mm-hmm. All the stuff that distracts and distractions. When I say the word distractions, I think a lot of times we connotate negativity with that. Distraction isn't bad. My child can be a distraction. It's not a bad distraction, but I mean, if you ever tried to take a work call and your kid's like, mom, 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 and you're just doing, this or the snap, You know, my kids, they know the snap. Snap means, and of course, for some reason, I think if I snap harder and louder, they're going to listen more, but it never actually works that way. But it's going to be an interesting study for the rest of the year to see how our businesses look as the distractions come back to life. Moving from E to P, I am purposeful about breaking through my ceiling of achievement. Step 4, learning-based being the foundation of your action plan. I'm willing to be taught. I always pursue learning. Step 5, I unlimit my thinking and my success. And step 6, it's mine and I own it. So that's just a quick overview. Let's dive into these a little bit deeper. We're going to keep this to an hour. And so there's, again, Katie can email out the material if y'all want to go back and go through some of the, we just don't have the time to, okay, everybody take 3 minutes and put your pencil on the table when you're done. What are 3 things you'd like to accomplish? But I want you to go back if you can and think about what would you do that you are waiting to get done because you think you'll be here forever. And I think that's an interesting question to ask yourself. What is your goal? How are you doing with your goal? How do you feel about that? So there's some great questions that, again, we'll get this out to you and y'all can work through that in your spare time. So let's talk about step 1, committing to self-mastery. So somebody that's got themselves unmuted, someone read out loud for me. It just helps me when y'all are engaging back and forth, and I really appreciate that. What is the definition of self-mastery? And it's right there on the screen, so you don't have to make it up.
The possession of great knowledge, skills, and habits that make you the master of you.
Okay, say that again. Say it with the emphasis on the bold or the all capital words. Repeat it one more time for me.
Self-mastery is the possession of great knowledge, skill, and habits that make you the master of you.
Y'all all got into this business to be your own boss, right? Like, you are self-employed. You are your own boss. And that is fantastic, and it's terrible. You know, I use the illustration. If I get hired, if one of my kids when they were teenagers, if they get hired at the Gap and their job is to fold T-shirts, and for the display, and they show up at work late and they don't fold the T-shirts and they do other things, they're going to get fired, right? Our job is to lead generate. How many days do we show up at work late, not do our job, but we never fire ourselves? Right? And yet because we're the boss, you know, you're the boss, I'm the boss of me. I have to find a way to make myself master myself. And in order to do that, you have to do 3 things, and they're listed here for you. You have to know your goals. I sit across from people, and Katie, I know you've done this, and Taisha, in your roles in the past, I'm sure you've done this as well. You sit there with people and you say, what are your goals? And I'm not, I don't want to offend when I say this, so please know this is said out of love. I can't tell you the number of people that sit across from me and go, you know, I'm not really a goal person. I just want to do good. I want to, you know, succeed. And like, I don't get that. It doesn't compute in my brain. And the reason I think people don't know their goals is because they're afraid of putting down something that they're not going to hit or that they may not hit. So if I don't say it, then I didn't fail. But if I don't say it, I have greatly hurt my chances of succeeding. So it's just this self-perpetuating cycle of not succeeding. So you've got, if you're not a naturally goal-driven person, and that's okay, there's a lot of people that aren't naturally goal-driven. I mean, I kind of feel like I got a little bit of a benefit because the way that I was raised from the time I was 5, and I'm not kidding, y'all, this is the truth. We were taught every year, we had to sit down and write our goals: financial, academic, athletic, spiritual. Like, and I hated my parents for making us do that until I became an adult and made my kids do it, because I realized they had put a skill set into my life that was going to be beneficial for the long term. So you got to know your goals. You also have to know your strengths and weaknesses. And this is, you really start to get self-actualized when you can say, here's what I'm really good at, and here's what I'm not good at. And I will say this, and when I say it, it is 100% honesty. There's no self-deprecation or false modesty here. I am really only good at about 3 things. And everything else I am terrible at. And that's not being down on that's just the reality. But once I got to where I could look at it and say, here's where I'm good, here's where I'm not, then I could build a plan. And then I could build people around me, instead of fighting this battle to like get better at things I'm not good at. I could just stay in that strength zone and work there. But that requires an honest, an honest assessment of what your strengths and weaknesses are. Then you get to know how to work with both of them to reach your goal. So self-mastery is a lot about just being honest with yourself, Mastery is actually, somebody else read this for me. What is mastery? The word mastery itself, what is that?
Mastery is the possession of great knowledge, skills, and habits that make one the master of a subject.
Have you ever met somebody who's like a history buff, and they like know everything about a period of history, whatever, the Roman Empire, American history, European history, whatever. Like they know all that, like they have spent a good chunk of their life researching and understand, and usually it's because of a passion, right? They just, or for whatever reason, they're passionate about something. That's what we're talking about, is getting knowledge, skills, and habits that make you the master of a subject. And for us, that subject needs to be running a real estate business and being a business owner. So that's mastery. And then we put the pieces together and we begin to achieve self-mastery. So when we say, I'm going to go back to this slide for a second, knowledge, skills, and habits. When I started selling real estate, and I'll give you just a practical one. One of the things that I realized really quickly, and it wasn't because I was smart, it's because I happened to just be placed around some really great realtors that I got to learn a lot from early on in my career. And I learned more about pricing homes from these guys than probably I've learned. We did a sales meeting yesterday and we talked about pricing homes. Almost everything I said in that sales meeting was something I learned 16 years ago at Dynamic Properties from John Levy and Peggy Young and Dar Walden. Like, I learned from them, and they were masters of pricing. It saddens me as a real estate professional that most of our agents today run a cloud CMA with a quick down and dirty, and they say, here's your price. And I'm like personally offended by that, because our trade craft, our actual real estate trade craft is our ability to gather the data, use what we have in our gut, look at the knowledge that we have and come up with, here's how you should price your home. That's just an example of a skill set that you can grow and get better at and develop and practice. And it's a basic skill set. But, if you don't price your house right, even in a great market, it's not going to sell. So I think it's a pretty important skill set. So just use that as an example. We're not going to watch the videos today because we just don't have the time to do it. So I'm going to skip past that. And there's an exercise that you can do where you can list 3 things that may get in the way of you achieving the goal you have. Think about those obstacles, look at them and say, okay, how am I going to get past that? Like, let me make a plan to get past those obstacles. Well, the Market Center only has a class that's happening during the day and I work at night. Great. Can you ask your team leader, record the class and make it available so I can watch it at night? Like, don't expect everybody to solve your problems for you. I'm just using the Market Center on that as an example. Figure out a way that you can go solve those problems so you can get past these obstacles that could keep you from hitting your goals. Okay, I'm looking at the time. Great, I have 30 minutes to cover 5 personal perspectives. Number 2 is commit to the 80-20 principle. Man, I think that one day Gary's going to update this and it's going to say commit to the 95-5 principle. Like, just to me, it feels like the 80-20 ratio is getting more and more, there's more and more disparity there. So let's just talk about what that is. Someone read out loud for me the truth that's on this screen.
There is a pattern of predictable imbalance in life. It is called the 80-20 principle.
Yeah, all things are not mattering. All things do not matter equally. So basically, here's what we understand. And a lot of y'all, y'all have done a great job in your Market Center of educating. So most of you know this. We're going to talk through it again, though, that all activity does not generate equal results. So while it is very helpful that I have all of my files color-coded, alphabetized, and in order, it doesn't help me sell more houses. May help me keep the deals together a little better, but it's not going to, that doesn't generate more income. I'll use myself as an example of a failure in this. For years, I fought the getting a transaction coordinator, an assistant. And I fought it because I did it really good. And I just, I was really good at it in my mind. I was selling about 100 homes a year, 100 to 120, and I was doing all this by myself. And it was the stupidest waste of my time, but my pride, and I didn't want to spend any money, so I was holding on to nickels and stepping over dollars. My pride and my scarcity mentality kept me from doing it. Well, here's the truth. The National Association of Realtors says it takes about 50 hours to work a deal from start to finish. If you take out, let's say 15 of them, let's say 20, and 20 of those is showing property, negotiating, writing offers, that leaves 30 hours left of doing contract work. When I'm sitting there ordering title and septic and survey and warranty and communicating with the lender, is it important it gets done? Absolutely. It's got to get done. It's got to get done well. What if I took that same 30 hours and got on the phones and talked to my database and I could go generate, more $7,000 commissions? I just couldn't. It's so counterintuitive to us to let go and understand that you are the primary source of real estate business for your own business, your relationships, your contacts, your conversations, and everything you can do to free up your time so that you are more engaged in those conversations will generate more business. And this, I think on paper, we can all get behind it, but in reality, I can't tell you the number of times I sit down. We have 3 different transaction coordinating companies inside our Market Center. You got all kinds of options. There's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different women that do the transaction coordinating. So you can't tell me, well, I don't like that one. Fine, use another one. Everybody is hung up on, I do it better and I don't want to spend the money. But all of them, I had a conversation with a gal by the name of Megan Battle in my office last night, driving home from work. 4 years, she's finally using one. Her business is on fire. And she said, Jen, she's like, I finally get it. Like, equal work, not equal result. So when you can really understand the 80-20 principle, I heard someone share it to me like this. They said, instead of creating my to-do list every day. And I don't know about you, but are y'all to-do list people? Like if you got kids, you're a to-do list person, right? And I'm such a to-do list person that if I do something that's not on the list, I write it on the list and cross it off just so I can see that I did it, right? That's how screwed up I am. But like we've been raised that when we get that list and at the end of the day we look at it and it's all crossed off and we're like, I had a good day. I didn't make any money, but I had a good day. I accomplished a lot. And we have to retrain our brain. And I heard Kristen Cole, who's a good friend of mine, and she was an agent in my office. And she told me one time that she has a not to do list. So she started writing her to-do list, and then she went through it and said everything on here that I shouldn't do herself. And she got granular. And y'all, I mean, you could call it diva if you want. She didn't cook her breakfast anymore. She didn't put gas in her car anymore. She came to the office. Her assistant had a big thing of oatmeal cups, had her oatmeal ready for her to eat when she walked in. As soon as she dropped her car, one of the assistants would take it when it needed it, run down to the gas station. So she could do nothing but do activity that makes money. One of her assistants said, if we could figure out how to pee for Kristen, we would. But we can't figure that out. She got a ton of clarity around the activities that generate business. And if you can grasp that, you will be light years ahead of everyone else. I think the way you identify your 20% is you just start, like the exercise that I've done with agents that I've coached or consulted with is this: go make a list just go through your day and write down what you did. And I mean, it doesn't have to look pretty. And I'm not even talking about the time block. I just mean, what did you task? I did this, I did this, I did this. Do it for a few days, and then go back and look at it and say, okay, what made me money? And anything that didn't make you money, figure out a way around it. And it gets crazy, like into just life stuff. Like for me, I'm a massive a user of Shipt shopping. I'm sure you guys have that there as well. Like I haven't been to the grocery store in I don't even know how long. Like what I learned was every Saturday, you know, I'd make my menu, I'd make my grocery list, I'd go to the grocery store, then I'd have to go to the other one to get what I couldn't get at that one. Well, I started at Costco and then went there. 4 hours, start to finish. Loading, unloading, shopping, driving. It wasn't that I would have been lead generating in those 4 hours. It's that I would have been resting. And I needed to be rested to be effective Monday morning when I walk into work. So I began to trade some dollars for time, not for income, but for preparing myself mentally so that I could be more effective and that I actually got a weekend. I didn't get to the weekend to go, well, now I got to do my house chores, you know, all my work at home. So understand leverage in your life by identifying what can I get off my plate. I mean, the one thing, the book, The One Thing, if you haven't read it, I kind of would guess that most people on this call have read it. If you haven't read it, read it. It's an easy read. It's a fast read. It will change your way of thinking. And there's a ton of material. This is an excerpt from that book about how to do that success list. How do I make a success list, not a to-do list? Here's what I want to accomplish. Run a marathon. Great. Here's the things I need to do. Now I can get, from there to the next level. What do I need to do? And this is just a great exercise to show you, using something that's not real estate related, how to use that list to be your friend, not your enemy. Okay. I'm going to skip through some of this so we can get through all of the material. Sorry about that. Okay, E to P. This is probably my favorite of all of them because I think we do this for the rest of our lives. Like we get somewhere and we have success, and then we hit a ceiling. Then we got to figure out how to break through that ceiling. and then we do, and we hit and then we hit another ceiling. Like, we will hit ceilings. And the reason I love the E to P model is, for me, this is a model that is not just about real estate. This is your marriage. This is your spiritual life. This is your financial life. This is your health, your fitness, your parenting. Like, this is life. And if you can really understand this principle, I think it changes everything in your entire life. So basically, entrepreneurial, we start out doing something, we just figure it out. We take our natural skills, our natural gifts, our natural abilities, and all of us will have some level of success. But all of us will have a ceiling. Now, your ceiling may look different than someone else's ceiling, than someone else's. They're not going to be the same ceiling, but everybody hits one. And so what typically happens is, we think the answer is work harder. So we work harder, and we still keep, hitting our head against that ceiling, and we get frustrated. And the reality is that in order to break through that ceiling, we have to do 5 things. Number 1, we have to focus. Like, do you really want to break through this ceiling? Like, is this where you want to go? Figure out what's your goal. How am I going to get there? Number 2, we got to find options. How can I get this done? I remember it was about 12 million in volume for me. I remember this like it was so clear. I was at 12 million in volume, and the reality, and I was single agent, no assistant, no admin, no nothing, no technology. This is 100 years ago. And I had to have a conversation with myself that said, I'm either going to be okay to do 12 million for the rest of my life, because there are no more hours in the day. There's nothing left. Or I got to figure out a way to get through it. And the challenge for me is that I'm a competitive, I can't just settle at 12 million. So it forced me to go, okay, how can this be done? Well, the how was get an assistant. But I had to think differently and think with an option. Number 3 was look for models to follow. Find somebody who's done it before you. Find somebody who is doing, they're just a little bit further down the road than you, and you can look at what they're doing that works. Number 4 is get systems in place. Y'all, we all have systems, just usually they're locked in our head. They're not written down for us to follow. So when you can get clarity on your systems, it helps you either leverage stuff off. It was like when I first had my first assistant, I took a listing. I came back with listing paperwork, and I said to Ronnie, okay, here you go. She's like, well, what do I do? Well, order a sign. Well, we got to get pictures. Like, I didn't have a checklist to give her. I had to tell her everything from my head. And if I had walked out the door and got hit by a bus, that listing wasn't going on the market, because she didn't know what to do. So we all have systems. Let's just get clarity around them and get them in an order that works and that we can hand off to someone. And number 5 is the magic word of accountability that we all hate and we all love it all at the same time. Get accountability in your life, that someone can hold you accountable. I mean, the bottom line is we're the worst people to hold ourselves accountable. It's just, I can drive to the gym, get to the parking lot, realize I've forgotten my headphones, and say, guess I better not go to the gym today. Can't run without the headphones. Like, I can talk myself out of anything. So I don't need to be holding myself accountable. So focus, systems, options, models, and accountability. Those are the things that get you through that ceiling. We'll get to Taisha's step 4 here. Make learning-based the foundation of your action plan. A learning-based individual, someone read this for me, is what?
A learning-based individual is an individual who has made the decision to use effective learning as the foundation piece for their action plan to develop their life.
Yeah. So this is someone who gets it. Like, another term would be a coachable person. Have you ever heard anybody use that term? Oh, they're really coachable. Maybe it's one of your kids even that was on a sports team, and the coach says, man, I love your kid. They're coachable. You also heard that person is not coachable. and they're not willing to learn. I had a guy that joined my office this year. I can say this to y'all because y'all don't know who he is. So this is between us girls here. He came to our office.
This is recorded.
That's okay. I'm not just to blast it out. And got him in productivity. We have a great productivity coaching program, and got him in productivity coaching. And after about 2 weeks, he came to me and he said, "Listen, I need to be out of that program." I said, "Okay, tell me more. What's going on?" He said, "Yeah, I got all that figured out. I don't need anybody to tell me how to do this. I just need somebody to help me with contracts." And I said, "Oh, so are you writing contracts? Do you have buyers and sellers?" Well, I mean, I got that. I got that figured out. I said, "You know what? You are relieved of the program. No worry." Like, there wasn't even a point. And he was like, "Really? That's all you're going to do? It's not a big thing?" I said, "Yeah, no, you're good. You're out. Don't worry about it." And he's like, "Seriously?" And I said, "Dude, you don't want to learn. So I'm not going to fight with you to make you learn, because you are not a learning-based individual." So we say it's like it's a bad thing. I said, "Well, you'll figure that out for yourself, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, and circle back with me and let me know how it is." So that person has now gotten a job and moved on out of the real estate career because he had it all figured out, right? And I'm using that as an extreme example because it was kind of extreme, but we all struggle with that at different points. The two words that I tell my children, I really don't want to hear you say to me, are "I know." No, you don't. You actually don't know. Now, as you grow, you learn and you gather more. But a lot of times I think when we are in a conversation, like, start listening to yourself, because I catch myself doing all the time. How many times do you say, "Yeah, I know. What that is it's a verbal block to say, and there's certain times it's appropriate. I'm not saying eliminate the words from your vocabulary. Begin to just sort of turn a mirror on yourself and start to see, how many times am I doing this to new knowledge that needs to come into my brain? And I think you'll find, as I find with myself, I do that more often than I think I do. I just have to become more aware of that. And then you kind of get through the actualization process. I need to know, there's knowing for, and this is what I was talking about earlier, like professional class takers, there's knowing for knowing's sake. I'll give you an example. My husband makes so much fun of me. I am, most people that know me really well, they're surprised when they find this out, because I'm not a detailed person. I don't read all the words. If you send me a long email, you've lost me at the first 3 sentences. I'm just big picture, big vision, and that's why I get really smart people around me, because I need them. We're doing this contest in our region right now for team leaders, and there were so many, I don't even know what the contest is. I got bored reading the whole thing. The way you count points, there's like 95 different metrics. I completely disengaged in my mind because it was so much knowledge to me for nothing. So, Katie, you can't share that either. Anyways,
Lips are sealed, and I'm there with you.
that being said, if you know me that way, here's what people are surprised to find out. When we watch a movie or a TV show, I usually have my laptop out on my lap very quickly, and I start researching whatever that event was about. Like, I want to know. If we watched a movie last night, we watched American Made with Tom Cruise. It's the story of Barry Seal, a DEA informant back in Nicaragua cartel days. I looked up I read everything there was to read about it while I was watching the movie. If we watch a movie about, Gladiator, I'm going to read about the Roman Empire. That does mean nothing. It's just knowledge for knowledge's sake. There's nothing wrong with that. It helps me be a better conversationalist from time to time when I can pull on this random data that I know. But in business, I've got to know for doing's sake. I've got to know so that I can go implement it and take action and do the things that I need to do. Okay, there's the four levels of, we don't know what we don't know. There's sometimes we just don't know what we don't know. The brand new agent. I got an agent this morning. So do I take the bar orientation or the MLS orientation? Like, they don't know what they don't know. And their need is for knowledge. But then we begin to get knowledge. And now if we're smart people, like the really smart people, the smartest people are the ones who know what they don't know. And it's conscious incompetence, and they know that they have to gather wisdom. Then we get that knowledge, and now we have to be competent. We are aware of the knowledge, and we have to be competent with it, which means develop habits. Otherwise, you stopped at knowing for knowing's sake. Like right there between 2 and 3, just draw a line. Because if you don't put it into habit, now it's just useless information. And then number 4, now we know without thinking about it. Conscious, unconscious competence. So, I look at this and I say, we've been on this call for 50 minutes. Has anybody had to remind themselves to take a breath? You've breathed, unless somebody has dropped off on the Zoom. You have breathed, and you didn't think about it, did you? I would bet you that every person on this call brushed their teeth this morning. And you didn't have to set a reminder on your phone to tell you to do it. You did it. You got up, you brushed your teeth. It's not you. And I'm using a really basic analogy, but that's what I'm saying. You do without thinking about it. So that's the action piece of the learning base, like what we were talking about earlier at the beginning with Taisha. Now we've learning and doing. Those two things have to go together. Okay. High achievers. And this kind of puts it all into a synopsis. Somebody read this for me. High achievers do what?
High achievers reach their goals by making training, education, and self-development the foundational piece of their action plan.
So one of the things we laughed about here, I do a lot of teaching in our sales meetings on leadership. And I said this in this video. Sometimes our training room gets packed out. Like we get 75, 100 people in there for sales meeting. And I'll start talking about leadership. And literally, I see a portion of the room kind of like, what? I thought we were going to learn how to write a repair addendum. Or, like they'll look at me like, why are we, this is a real estate sales class. Like, why are we not learning real estate? Self-development, leadership development. Again, I go back to what I said at the beginning. If you didn't think it was important before COVID, before, unrest and all kinds of craziness happening in our world right now, and things that we don't understand and are trying to wrap our minds around, if you didn't think leadership was important before, you better think it is now, because now it is critical that you have self-development. And the good news is it's not too late. If you haven't done it before, jump on the train immediately and start reading about leadership and developing yourself. Okay. Skip through all this. Okay, step 5, remove your limiting beliefs. I know there's a lot of people that have taken bold on this call, and I think this is one it's actually it's a very simple concept. It's very hard to do, right? High achievers do what? Someone read what high achievers do.
Remove beliefs from their thinking that hold them back.
We all have it, right? No one in my family has ever. I can't make that much money. I'll use the Andrew Hancock illustration from the beginning. He basically made $100,000 in May in gross commission income. And he said to me that bold is what got him to think about it. He said, the first time I took bold, we did the financial thermostat, and they said, do you want to make $100,000 in a year? And then they said, do you want to make $100,000 in a month? Then they said, how do you make $100,000 a day? And he says, the first time he said, look, I grew up in Pleasant Grove. My mother made $35,000 a year. I thought if I made $50,000 a year, I would be like rolling, right? He said, I had to learn to think differently and remove the beliefs that this is what society said I could do based on my family history, where I came from, what my background was, raised by a single mom in a socioeconomic lower income area of town. He said, I made in a month what my mom made in like 4 years of working, but I had to learn how to think differently and take those beliefs off that it can't be done. Okay. Finally, be accountable. This chart right here, like, if this isn't something that you have printed up somewhere visible, screenshotted on your phone, I would really challenge you to do that, because you if you can get really introspective about your language and how you view life, number one, you'll begin to see what you are surrounded with. So like the question becomes, A, am I a victim or am I an accountable person? B, who's around me? Because we all know we become the sum total of the 5 people around us. So when you look, a person that's ignorant, they don't seek reality, they ask no questions. They're in denial about change. That's just the way it is. That's how I see it. That's your perception. They blame others. If everybody else would do their job, it's not my fault. You guys see this in real estate transactions all the time, right? Well, if your buyer hadn't blah, 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 blah 3 weeks ago, my seller wouldn't, yada, 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 yada. And it's a whole blame game, right? I can't tell you the number of times in a leadership role I've had to step into transactions and just go, hey guys, guess what? Nobody cares. It's over. That happened 2 weeks ago. That happened last week. That happened whatever. Here's where we are now. I know it frames the context, but do you want to buy the house and do you want to sell the house? If the answer is yes, we're done talking about all of that. How do we fix here today? And I almost have to do like a snap, like into reality, like to get people, that snap, to get people to get out of their victim language of blaming each other and just going, okay, can we just find the solution? Let's figure out the answer. An accountable person, they seek reality, they acknowledge reality, they own it. Hey, you know what? My bad. That's on me. I'll take it and move forward. They find solutions. My staff has a rule. If you bring me a problem, that's great. Bring me 3 solutions with it. If you can't bring me some solutions, don't bring me the problem. Because we need to be able to talk about, otherwise we just start listing problems and then everybody gets negative. When you find a solution, then you get on with it. There is no reason to verbally digest a problem once you have figured out a solution. Go get into action and get on a plan to move forward. I find we waste a lot of words talking about stuff like it's over. Okay, yes, we've hashed it, we've looked at it, we've analyzed it. That's important. Now we have an action plan. Now we go forward. We don't stay in the past. And you'll begin to look at these terms on this list, begin to see them around yourself. First of all, look at yourself. How do I respond? Then begin to look at others, and you'll see whether you have victim language or accountable language.
And hey, Jen, the bold law is focus on the plan, not the problem.
Mm-hmm.
So.
I mean, I think that was one of the biggest challenges when my husband and I got married, is we had 2 different ways of solving problems. And my way is, okay, there's a problem. All right, we can do da, 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 da. All right, let's go. And he's a slower processor. I'm not smarter than he is. We just process differently. So I had to learn, he wasn't being a victim. He just didn't move at the same speed that I did, where I was like, okay, I'm over it. Let's go. Let's fix it. Because I just don't see any need to stay in the space. A victim doesn't seek reality. They fight reality. They blame, they provide excuses, and they wait and hope that things get better. An accountable person seeks reality, acknowledges reality, owns it, finds solution, and gets on with it. So basically, look at that. We did good. I think if we can grasp those 6 things and really get our mind around them, I think what we're moving into in the real estate market and the economy and the world and all of the things, I think we need these more now than we've ever needed them before. So I would just challenge you to take just one concept from what you got today and go implement it into your business. So before we wrap it up, it's 11:59. Any questions or thoughts or ahas or comments for me? None. Awesome. You're all
Anybody?
self-mastery. Ready for self-mastery.
Taisha.
Hey, okay. So thank you so much, Jennifer, for teaching this class. I have enjoyed it every time I've heard it. And every time that I listen to it and I listen to the 6 personal perspectives, it always makes me go back and take a look at myself again and see, where am I in denial on this chart?
Right.
Because that's really what it boils down to, kind of like looking back at myself saying, where am I in denial? Where do I think that I've completely arrived within this range of
Right.
things, whether it's mastering my 80-20. And even you told the story about Megan, which was funny because just 2 days ago, I called a transaction coordinator and I laughed. I had got one from Retha, and she said, "Hey, Taisha, I was waiting to get your documents." I was like, "Yeah, I went ahead and did that myself. Don't worry about it." And it's kind of like, you're defeating the purpose, because at the end of the day, I'm like, oh, I can just go and do that really quickly and I'll be done with it. But then 4 days later, when Susan's like, yeah, all your files out of command are missing, that kind of thing. And really understanding where your time is best spent. So I really like the way that you put that when it comes to the 80-20 rule. And also one other thing I wanted to say was when you talked about being a lifetime learner, and you were talking about the gentleman who felt like he knew it all and wanted to step away, you can look back and see in every area of your life where you've put your hand up and say, I know it. And you'll see that you always have to circle back around in one way or another.
Yeah.
I don't care if it's with your kids. I don't care if it's in your marriage, like you said, with other jobs, other things you've been affiliated with. Whenever you throw that up, even if sometimes you do know it.
Yeah, and you may know it. That's right. That's right.
I know it. But when you throw that up, you're still limiting yourself from learning something new or understanding it from a different perspective. And you always will circle back around, good or bad, you'll circle back around. So that was good.
It's funny, when I became an agent, brand new agents, this is 18 years ago, and I sat in my first, we didn't have a KW at the time. So I was at this large local independent. And I sat in my first sales meeting and I listened, as people would talk. And I said to myself, okay, I don't get to speak for 2 years in this room. I haven't earned the right, and I don't know anything. So I put like a self-imposed limit on myself that I wasn't going to speak. And I didn't. And then when I became a team leader, or when I, moved on, grew my agent career, became a team leader, I didn't say 2 years, but I said a year. Like when I go to trainings, my job is not to sit there and open my mouth. It's to listen and learn, because I don't know. I may think I know, but I don't. And then I came to the Southeast region, and even though I'm already an established team leader, I'm sure there's a lot I can learn there. So I said, okay, 6 months, I'm going to keep my mouth shut. And it sounds kind of silly, but it was a way to like physically remind myself that I don't know it all and I need to learn.
That's right. Yeah.
So,
I think to piggyback on that too, guys, when we're saying, oh, we already know, even if it's something we're telling ourselves, we're operating in ego, because there's always something we could be learning from other people. Even if it's the same content, people say it a different way. People have different mannerisms that we can.
Well, I mean, if you've ever had a child, I'll never forget, my son was playing football at Stanford University, my middle son, and he comes home he lived on campus, but he came home one day and he goes, oh my gosh, I went to this Bible study and it was amazing. And he talked about da, 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 da. And I was like, you do realize you've been raised by Moses, right? Like, how did you not hear that for 20 years? But you went to one Bible study and this cool coach said it. And it's just like gold, right? And of course I didn't say that out loud. I was thinking it in my head, because I was just celebrating the fact that he showed up to the party, even if he was late. But Katie, that's exactly what you said. Like, we can know something, and he knew that already, like that biblical truth. He had been raised in it. He knew it, but he heard it differently from this guy than he heard it from his mama. And that's parenting forever. But so you just hope you get really great people around your kids so they hear the good things. But
Well, it goes back to the 6 personal perspectives too, because how old is this class? I mean, this is really something we probably
Yeah.
cycle through. We hear as team leaders, you need to teach this often. The reason is because exactly like right now, our eyes are open to, oh, this is why this is important.
yeah,
Right.
yeah, that's a great point. Absolutely.
Mhm.
Well, y'all are so sweet to take an hour out of your day and let me yap at you. And I just appreciate it. Y'all are our sister market center. And so whatever we can do to help, we want to. And it's fun to see some familiar faces on the screen and get to wish you all the best for
We
sure.
appreciate you, Jen. Thank you so much.
Yes. Thank
See
you.
you later.
Anytime,
Thank
y'all.
you.
All right. Be
Bye,
safe.
everybody.
Bye.